program, and Brent is going to give you all kinds of information about the details and answer your questions. I just wanted to make sure that before you leave, to please fill out the survey. If you need them, I'll get you another one, but please leave that with us. And also, on the agenda is a hotline phone number if you have questions. And we have a website that's got lots of information on it, and we will keep up to date with our upcoming meetings and what's going on. And that's a good place for you to also ask questions there. There's also a Twitter address. And we'll be doing periodic surveys off of that website, and we'll also use your email on the information you left us to send you to get your feedback, because that's what we need. We want to know your feedback, what's important to you, how this is affecting you, what's best for you. So if you'll take a look at all of that, there's also some contact names down there. So if you have questions, ask. Please let us know what your questions and concerns are. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Brent, and he's going to give you lots of good information.
So, my name is Brent Whitfield. I'm with Chinmore & Associates, and we're the engineer that was selected to do District 4. We basically, to give you a sense of the timeline, what the city wanted to make sure we did was try to put forward roadway-only projects so we could get started on the work, and make sure we get contractors out in the field, start spending the money that all the residents of the city agreed. Bond the money, let's start the construction. And so what we did was we went through District 4 and we found streets where, per the city's capital improvement plan, there was no underground utility concerns, and where the real problem was just the condition of the road. And so what we did was we put together a couple different groupings. So in these kind of highlighted tape, I'll explain the tape later, is the first grouping. And that grouping we had a meeting about, I believe it was about a month ago, and this is our second meeting about this grouping. We've been working on a set of construction plans for these. They're almost finished. Next week we should be done. They've been talking to a contractor who's going to be getting all the pricing and everything organized, and then July 18th, I believe, will be the commission meeting where the contract should be approved with the contractor to move forward and start construction on these streets. Now, the red lines, just to kind of catch you up, these are what we're calling bid package B. So we've got survey and pavement information on the red lines there. And as soon as the construction starts on these in July, we'll start doing the design for the red ones, what we're calling bid package B. So around September, we'll start the next phase of the road work. Then when that's completed, so the end of 2017, start of 2018, we'll pick up the next set. So this isn't everything that was highlighted in yellow. The next set, so down on 15, a few other places close to downtown, those streets involve underground utilities, so water main work, drainage work, things like that. But what we focused on to start with is where the problem is with the road itself and not underground. We're going to go through those and try to get those started as soon as we can. So first off, does anybody have any questions about that? Go ahead.
Yeah, what I see an orange line that's going from south to north. What street is that?
So right here?
No.
The biggest one?
Yeah, the one that has the yellow.
Yeah, so that's South K Street,
okay.
From 6th to 3rd. So from 3rd up, there is, I think, some water main work that needs to be done. So we're not putting that in the first set. So K Street, there's still some work to be done going north on K Street. But we did the first phase where we could just do the pavement, and we're going to stop right there on the north side of 3rd. And then I think it's some water main relocation or something I'd have to check. But we don't want to do any paving work where we would tear it up again. So we're sticking with just that.
My second question on this orange one, is this at like 60, like when you said a drawing that's like forthcoming, is that a 60%?
No, we have a set of plans that's 90% right now and going to be 100% next week. So we've got a set of construction drawings that show basically where do we need to repair the curb, where do we need to repair the sidewalk, what type of pavement repair needs to be done, for all the stuff you see in tape. And, go ahead.
Was there a previous meeting?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the follow-up.
Yes.
Yeah, you got the comments from the 60s?
Right, so the previous meeting we had, I brought in some paving cores so you could see like what the asphalt looked like and what the rock looked like, and I'll talk a little bit about that as we go through these different colored pieces of tape. But we brought in the paving cores, and then we had that board. I don't know if you had gone to any of the other meetings where people kind of said what they liked, what they wanted to see. And so some of these pieces of tape will kind of describe how we responded to that. I think that meeting was roughly a month ago, Laura.
It was right at the end of May.
Did anybody go to that meeting?
Yes. It was targeted at the District 4 residents, so some of us got flyers on our doors. It was a very short notice.
I didn't get a flyer. I was personally offended.
Yes, I know some of us got
I got a flyer
flyers.
for this meeting, just for the record.
I think that's why Laura is now here.
To make sure we all get flyers and information about it.
Yeah, that's kind of why we did this survey too, to help how we get your guys' feedback and stuff.
So I'm not sure how it would have been, but I believe door hangers went out to all the streets.
They went out for both meetings. The door hangers were on all, you should have had door hangers for both meetings. What we're communicating, with your neighborhood presidents and your neighborhood heads as well, so they can also reach out to you, so we can try. And that's why if you feel like your survey, and that's why we have the website, so we're trying to get as many different resources. Plus, if we have your email, we can have a database of you, just send you a notice directly to your email.
I mean, there was a pretty good turnout. There was more people than there is tonight. So, I mean, the message got across to some grouping of residents.
And I'll just, for the record, I actually live in Paracove.
Okay.
And my girlfriend lives in Paracove.
Okay.
And she got a notice about this meeting
Oh.
At
the neighborhood association.
in the Paracove, at her house in Paracove. So it was just, that's how I actually found out about this meeting.
They were only supposed to have noticed those residents who are directly affected.
Yeah.
Actually work is going on.
I figured it was a mistake.
That is a mistake. Yeah, that's strange. You all passed out the flyer.
Where in Paracove, if you don't
It
mind
was
me asking?
Lakeside and just north of 7th Avenue.
Well, that's pretty far.
Which is good because I didn't get one.
Yeah.
It was fine.
That's really odd. Maybe, are you sure it wasn't from one of the other, obviously.
No, I'm telling you.
Yeah, no,
That's how I found out.
You had a comment?
Yeah, is there an opportunity to ask a few brief questions?
Yeah, that's...
Absolutely.
Please. That's the whole purpose of
Can I
this.
ask them?
Yes,
Okay.
ask away.
Because I asked people who attended the meeting last time and they couldn't answer the question.
Okay.
My biggest concern is, will this work result in sidewalk connectivity from north to south in this proposed first phase?
Yes.
Right now, I have school children that walk in the street. Will all the sidewalks that are missing be filled in, including on vacant lots?
Right. That's an excellent question. And yes, the sidewalk connectivity was a really high priority for us. So what we did, one of the first things we did, I have Teresa Chapman here with me, also from Chenmore. Teresa and I went in the field. We have a little application on our phone and tablet where we can walk around and take a picture of the condition of the sidewalk. So even if there is a sidewalk, but it's in bad disrepair, needs to be replaced, we take a picture of it, we log the location, we make a note, and we say, that's an issue.
Okay.
And if you see in here, in our plans, which I can, if you want to come up
No, if you
afterwards.
say connectivity, that's all I
We
need
can
to
go
know.
over it, yeah.
I have just a couple of when residents replace their aprons, they're required to abide by the ADA. Will all of your ADA aprons meet the ADA despite the work that's required on a private property to accommodate that conundrum?
Right. No, I totally understand. So we are definitely meeting ADA requirements.
Okay.
As we go.
That's great. And
Can I follow up to that one? Including relocation of any telephone or
Yes.
power poles to make sure that it's...
Yeah, so signposts,
Yes.
power poles, things like that. Yes.
And just to piggyback on that, sorry for that, it's sometimes, obviously we have our own electric utility. I'm Felipe, I'm the Assistant Director for Public Services. We have an electric utility, so we have some control to a certain extent. However, we don't have control over like AT&T, Comcast, some of the other utility
But when
providers.
a private developer comes in and decides they're going to redevelop, they have to coordinate and get AT&T and Comcast and all of them to do it concurrent with whatever they're doing. So I would hope that the
Correct.
city would hold itself to the same standard.
I wish you luck on that. Wish us luck.
Well, actually,
I will have to
It takes
admit,
years.
developers have a hard time even
We
getting
have a hard time
AT&T
doing it, but we have to do it. So
We're
the
to the
public
point
should
where
do it
basically
too.
relocate and say, if you don't show up to relocate your utilities, AT&T or
We're gonna-
Comcast, but if you leave them hanging there, now the residents, you all are affected. You have
And
no
then
longer
they start
internet.
making the
You have
phone
TV.
calls and say, I'm not paying my bill, and it'll get done.
well,
That's more like
a
that,
couple
but-
holes, a couple
Yeah.
holes in the handicap ramps.
If you
It's a
cover
violation.
connectivity.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it really depends on where it is. So if there's still a clear space, I think it's
32 inches.
32 inches or
Yeah.
something. But in our case, going through, the directive from the city staff has been clear. Let's fix this. I mean, let's not accept this. Every time there's a pole in a ramp, every time there's a street sign in the middle of a ramp, every time we call out relocate and replace. So
my point-
moving this stuff out of the way.
Sorry, my point with that was we're going to do it. It may not be exactly concurrent with the construction
Okay.
project, maybe
But it is
delayed
gonna
a
happen.
few months. or
That's
whatever.
true.
Yeah.
The power poles are ones that we're calling out for the city to do. So it's not necessarily going to be the contractor who's doing this. So it'll have to be coordinated with city electric utility staff.
In Bryant Park, I've witnessed these poles going in and getting moved out of sidewalks and stuff because we have dozens of poles in the middle of sidewalks.
Second Avenue and Fourth Avenue.
Yeah.
And
segments
street
we are
signs
on.
as well.
Yeah.
Street signs also.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a lot of stop signs, like I
Oh,
walk
yeah.
my dog
Right in
and
the middle.
I smack into it.
We want the Key West.
We've had a lot of accidents and a lot of people injured and a lot of property damage as a result of cars being parked in the visibility angle. Will striping be part of
Not
this
just
thing?
striping, curbing.
And curbing to prevent cars from parking in the visibility
Bump
angle?
outs possibly.
So we do have bump outs on some of the streets at intersections. So K Street, this pink stripe here is bump out locations. So K Street, M Street, 4th Avenue South. Everything north of 6th Avenue South has bump outs except for 2nd Avenue South, where there was a concern with boat trailer traffic going to Bryant Park with the bump outs. But other than that, everywhere north of 6th Avenue South, we put bump outs at the intersections.
But
to
without
try to-
bump outs, painting actually to identify it as a non-parking zone.
But the bump outs will be curved.
Yeah, the
The bump out is
They're
going
like
to
a
be
raised curve.
a 6-inch tall D curve.
And then you're gonna have, if you park on the sidewalk like I do whenever I see a car parked on the sidewalk, I scream at them.
Yeah.
Well, that's outside of our.
What about the yellow?
I'm okay with doing it.
What's that?
The yellow are speed
So yeah,
bumps.
so the yellow is speed bumps on K. At the last meeting, K, everybody wanted
Yeah,
speed humps. Sorry.
Humps, not like a speed bump that you would typically see
No,
in
I'm
like
very
a.
familiar with speed humps.
Yeah.
So it's like the ones you see on. There's.
They're the wider ones.
They're not those little strips that you
No, they are the wider ones.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's
In previous city sidewalk projects where ADA has been ignored and existing retaining walls have been excuses not to do sidewalk work, can we, I live on K Street, I have an expectation that retaining walls won't be will not get in the way of you doing your work? That
No, yeah.
If there's a retaining wall on the
So
property.
we have a call out for protect existing retaining wall and contractor to protect existing retaining wall. There's actually a segment on M, South M Street, where it's the road, a curb, and then the person's front yard, the property's front yard, slopes right up immediately. And as you go on M Street, the places they have sidewalk, they have a retaining wall because you need that in order to fit a sidewalk in. So to make sure we meet the sidewalk connectivity that we're trying to get to, we're going to install retaining wall to keep the grade at that property line and then put the sidewalk in so the sidewalk's continuous on it.
That's great. And I'm almost done.
No, these are great questions. Thank you.
I know people will disagree about this particular question, but will any of the residents who have been contemplating adding off-street parking be able to get with Felipe? I know neighbors who've been trying to do this for years. I have neighbors who actually drive over the curb and park on their on their lots. Okay. With them willing to put the investment on the property side of the sidewalk, can we ahead of time change a sidewalk to an approach apron in lieu of what these people want to accomplish. And in the context of knowing that we have extreme overcrowding, so in parking overcrowding, in a 25-foot length, we can double the parking by having off-street parking.
Actually, what you're talking about is a planning and zoning thing?
Yeah.
No, well,
It's a right of
no, it's
permission
a thing that these people are permitted to do, that it's legal to do. It's just that it would be a cost savings to the property owner.
So like if the property owner came in and applied for the appropriate permit, would you guys just go ahead and install it since you're going to be doing the work there anyway?
So I mean,
it's a two-part comment what Darren's getting at as well, is as long if somebody does not have an existing permitted driveway, private driveway, right, and they want to get a new one, something like that, on private property, that's the first it starts the planning and zoning to make sure for code it's allowed with impervious to pervious.
Yeah, boom.
Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's not.
You'll run into people like me that don't parking in front yards even when
it's legal. So if the code allows it legal, absolutely.
It's required.
Yeah, because we're pouring a sidewalk anyways, it's just pretty much the same cost. We will go ahead and make an apron.
So
Okay.
what would the deadline be to get the permit approved?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, well, in that case, since the city is going to be doing it, we would not require a permit. We basically work, because we're going to be communicating with every resident as we're progressing with construction.
So,
and if we know that ahead of time, we'll make
We'd have to get a driveway we'd have to get a driveway permit to actually do the driveway on the private property.
And then we get to another plan.
So when would we need to get that permit?
As soon as possible.
I know when I built my house 8 years ago, and the city required me to provide
I know the property that he's talking about.
That's a requirement.
I would think if you could get a
It's a 25-footer.
No, it's 75.
It's not that you'd have to construct it. If you could show that you were going for it, I think the city in this project would be more than happy to put, because we're going through and replacing curb and
It's
sidewalks.
also legal to do just those strips, if there were a permeability problem, we could just do those strips.
So let's turn this upside down for a second. I have a neighbor who's trying to, do the apron and stop driving over the curb. And I'm saying, and they're asking me, what elevation? Where's the curb? And I'm like, I don't know. Your whole street's about to change. Postpone it. Talk to the city. See if there's a middle road for you. That seems like a logical thing.
Well, are they on one of these? You don't have to tell me the address, but are they on one of these stripes?
Yeah,
they're on South Bay between 3rd and 6th.
Yes.
Okay, then definitely try to communicate, if that's okay, the location, and we can put it on the plans. And I can show you here where we're planning on replacing curb and where we're planning on replacing sidewalk, and maybe that'll...
Absolutely.
Do they have a survey, Ed?
Yes, they have a survey. If they don't, I'll buy one.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll be, just so you all, for comfort level, we're going to have Chen Moore is going to provide a very competent field inspector. He'll be on the site basically all the time. He'll be out there, myself, city staff. We'll have people you can see and communicate also through the website. So very transparent, and try and communicate with everyone.
And this is my last comment, and I really appreciate you taking the time to allow me to. And I apologize for not, for one reason or another, I had no idea about the previous meeting. I was part of the group that put the bike lanes where they are today, and was very proud of it at the time. Since then, I've come to realize they're a terrible idea. The bike lanes,
they're not worth the effort.
They're really terrible. First of all, I said, why would you paint bike lanes on K Street when they're probably the worst street in the city, and you're doing it first, which proves my point that it was, going to get covered over anyway. But, I've ridden bikes up to recently quite a bit, and it's very dangerous to take people who are legally allowed to ride down the middle of a slow street, and everybody I know in my neighborhood wants the speed limit to come down 15, 20.
Right.
But to funnel the people into a lane against the driver's side doors of solid parked cars, which can cause accidents, is really dangerous. And it would be a better solution to just recognize the street as a bike lane, which it legally already is.
So you mean like a share-o instead?
A share, instead of saying, hey, all you guys should be in a lane here, buzzing along at 15 or 20 miles an hour right next to an automobile.
I mean, it's a great comment. I don't know what
we're going to talk about further.
The city wants to do. So just to circle back, our intention is to put back what was there. We weren't going to try to take bike lanes off. There is a share-o
On O Street.
Yeah, Ocean
Green.
is just south of Second.
Listen, save the money, don't bother paying.
Okay.
But that's the only Cheryl I'm familiar with in the vicinity
North
of
Oak Street.
Yeah.
I'd like to follow up on that. I'm curious, in the process of doing this project, are you following the Florida Department of Transportation Manual of Uniform Minimum Standards for Design, Construction, Maintenance for Streets and Highways? Is that?
Yes, yeah. We have, and most of the pay items that are associated with all the work that's being done by the contractor are based on all of the DOT standards.
Good. Now, my follow-up question is, on this bike lane here on South K Street, I haven't seen the construction drawings. You have them right there. How wide is that lane?
It's 5 feet wide.
It is 5 feet?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how wide is the parking?
So the parking lane, I can tell you, I think it's wider. Let me check.
Now keep in mind though, FDOT is FDOT. The city, we can do whatever we
You can do
want.
whatever you want. I was just asking, that's why I was asking if...
Liability reasons, we like to follow DOT standards.
Yes,
Because they set the bar and all that sort of stuff. But
the reason
we
I
can
asked
go narrow if we need
is
to.
because in previous meetings, the consultants, and it was a different one, not you, the ones I went to before, like Tropical Ridge in the second district, and they had actually 4-foot lanes drawn out.
For what?
For the bike lane.
For the bike lanes. But the striping is 6 inches on either side, so technically it's 5 foot wide.
So it's 4 feet wide with 6 inches of striping on each side.
Which makes it 5 feet.
Which makes it 5 feet.
Ooh, like a parking spot.
Okay, so
Pretty wide, yeah.
and the parking lane is...
And the parking lane is 6.5 from the edge of the gutter to the, so you got the curb, the gutter, and then 18 inches, a foot and a half of gutter, and then 6.5. So it's 8
feet.
8 feet basically. 6.5 of pavement and a foot and a half of concrete. And 6 inches of stripe, 4 feet of open, 6 inches of stripe.
In chapter 19 of the manual, it actually, a couple things. One is that the minimum for, and this is like currently 25. I think there's maybe interest in like having a lower speed limit. I certainly would like to see lower speed limits on these neighborhood streets, like as low as 15 miles an hour. And it says here very clearly that the minimum standard for a parking space is 7 feet.
So it's really 8 feet of space from the curb to the stripe.
Correct.
So
what
Beyond.
what and they furthermore, when they say you have these street, what are the traffic counts, for example, on this street?
I didn't bring it with me.
We brought it last meeting, but we did like a traffic study on some of the roads, like 2 going north and south and 2 east and west.
Which included K.
So let me just ask some more generalities. Is it 10,000? Is it 5,000?
I'm sorry. I know that the average speeds were not as high as we expected.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in the speeds. I'm actually interested in traffic counts.
I'll have to look back. We were more...
And just to give you just to give you an idea, just to like set in your mind what the traffic counts on Dixie Highway are generally about 19,000, 20,000. Okay. On Federal Highway, which is a fairer comparison because it's a 2-lane road, like this is essentially a 2-lane road. It's been converted to a one-lane road. Is like 9,000, 10,000. Okay. Federal Highway, in my opinion, is a lot busier than K Street.
Yeah.
So my guess is it's possible that there may be really only about maybe 3,000 or 2,500 or something like that. And so in that environment, they do like strongly encourage sharrows.
Oh, okay.
In other words, they say here
rather than a bike lane.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And then furthermore, they say that the parking area that you're talking about, the 8 feet, they say actually trim that down to 7 feet and increase the size of the bike lane.
Okay.
So that
or just the general shared drive lane.
Oh yeah, so if we're just doing Sharrows, that's like not a problem.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
Or so you're saying you would prefer just a Sharrow or or a skinnier parking lane or both?
If you're gonna like force a bike lane, like if you're gonna force a bike lane to go back in there, then all I was saying is that it would be better to have like a 7-foot parking lane and have a 6-foot bike lane.
Okay.
But I think the consensus among many is no bike lane.
No bike lane, just
Sharrows.
Okay.
And then the question is,
do the bike riders have to follow the direction of the arrow on the street?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a one-way.
So it's one way.
I know, because I've been surprised a couple times when I made a turn and I've got somebody like right in my face.
Yeah.
Right. And so here's the problem. Right now you have a street that's designed for 2-way traffic that's been converted to a one-way street. Your travel lane is essentially 15 feet. That's wider than like I-95.
Well,
now you're redesigning it, so I'm not like
right.
I can't like tell you.
But if we did a Sharrow and parking lanes, it would be 15 feet wide.
That's correct.
Maybe increase
Now,
it.
so what I'm suggesting is, just based on that, is if you could bring the parking in closer, okay, so that they're not, you no longer have that 15-foot space, and you have...
And then what do you have on the...
We have to, Palm Beach County Fire Rescue, we have to have at least 18 feet of some sort of navigable paved area. We're pretty limited. I don't want to detract from this conversation, but we spend a lot of time on design and all the standards, engineering, so theoreticals versus what we actually can do, or they're much different. So I don't want to spend too much time on this point.
No, I mean, I understand.
It's been vetted, and there's things we have to do,
Yeah, and I can confirm what you're mentioning, because unfortunately, the fire department puts these monster restrictions on our site plans that are, you just want to scream at them and tell them to buy smaller fire trucks.
Get a different fire department.
Their equipment wouldn't make any difference. I think you're stuck with the fire department.
I have a question. They're all on bicycles and everything. All of the cross streets, I live on the corner of First and Lakeside.
Okay.
And the residents at night and early in the morning, they haven't gone to work. They park so close to the corner. It is on Palm Way going north. There have been so many accidents. You cannot see past the car from the one-way direction that the traffic is coming, and there's cars parked. And this happens on every street.
This is the issue you brought up earlier of striping and triangles.
Nobody pays attention to that.
This would be the parking. So in some places,
it has to be enforced. I mean, you talk about 18 inches. When there's something in the park, you can't even get down First Avenue.
Sure. Yeah. And
there's no 18 feet.
I'm with you.
I almost got hit by a car.
I mean, it's impossible.
Yeah. They park in front of stop signs. Right in front of the stop sign.
We've noticed when we've been out in the field, and so I mean, we can take into consideration and put like some extra striping, or maybe increase the amount of bump outs that we're doing.
No parking signs.
The bump outs, I think, would be the most effective because it
prevents them.
It physically prevents you from being able to.
You can't put it on every corner. You can't put a bump out.
Why not? You're trying to prevent
be at the intersection,
and it creates a location for a shade tree. It really creates a nice avenue.
Because I think you've brought up a good point.
Let's get over.
I was thinking about what we were talking about in terms of bike lanes, not bike lanes. We live on South K as well, but we're a little bit above where you work right now. We're just above Second.
It will happen in like a year or so.
Yeah, but from my observations, that will be extension. We'll be watching what you do, so we'll know
what it's going to look like.
What I've noticed with bikes on our road, I'm home all the time. We see a lot. The compression of bicycles going from 2nd into downtown gets very, very dense because of all the restaurants and bars and things. I understand what you're saying about having a mixed-use road, I forget the phrase.
Sure. Yeah.
But when you're coming into an urban area and something that has pedestrian traffic and driving traffic, I don't know that that would apply. I think for a through street, I could see that combined. But not when you start to get into a density where people are leaving from restaurants, going to restaurants, coming from home, going to work. There's a lot of bike traffic and there's a lot of car traffic. And what I noticed was I was on my bike a lot on the bike lane. Yeah, people don't use it, people do use it, but the responsibility is clear as to who's responsible for where they are on the road. If you take that bike lane away, the legality of if there's an accident just goes kablooey because there's. It's a thought. It's a thought.
What's your name? Deborah. I will follow up with that because you brought up a very good point, and that's why I asked what the ADTs are. The ADTs, like the average daily traffic, like between First Avenue and Lake, is got to be higher. Is higher than like further down the street, and. I just want to mention something about like Rosemary had brought up, and that is the intersections themselves versus what I understand you have planned, which is like a series of humps. There's another like speed control device that's actually far more effective, but in transportation planning community, speed humps like vertical speed control is considered like not an effective way to like deal with speeding, and instead, like what I'm suggesting is a mini roundabout, like using mini roundabouts at the intersections. Now, with a mini roundabout, and I think that just for clarification, we have a modern roundabout up at Lake Worth Road. That's completely different. The mini roundabout is actually designed to fit into like the old traditional neighborhood, grid system that we have, and you can take the design of the mini roundabout and sort of do like a bump out to reflect the mini roundabout to enhance the mini roundabout, and at that point they're so effective. You don't need it'd just be a lot better system than doing speed humps.
First, let me mention the speed hump. At the previous meeting, there was several residents of South K that said, I want a speed hump, here's my address, put it in front of my house. It was very adamant.
They'll put up the noise.
And so that was, the city has a detail for speed humps. Our point of this meeting was to hear people out, and people in South K said we want speed humps, and so we got back some speed humps.
I understand that.
Getting to the roundabout, and the bump outs was another thing that I think narrows the visual field of the roadway, which does decrease the feeling that you can go fast.
It reduces the lane to about 8 feet. So, I mean, it is implied.
Well,
okay, how does that fit in with the fire department?
Hold on. To clarify, it's 8 feet on each side on the 2-lane streets, so 16 total. So a fire truck takes the opposing lane. Just to clarify. But the roundabout thing, I'm a resident of the College Park Neighborhood Association.
Yes.
And do you know Bob Lipa with College Park Neighborhood? He started the College Park Neighborhood Association.
Well, he actually lives right on.
Oh, now he moved to he moved right.
At least right now until he sells his house.
Okay. Yeah, he used to live at College Park until he sold that house. So he fought to put a modern roundabout or a mini roundabout at Pennsylvania and Fordham, and another one at Pennsylvania and
I'm well aware of that.
Something, and it turned into a neighborhood fabric tearing nightmare of argument over where that should be.
We don't want those in downtown.
And one of them, we actually funded. We raised money from the neighborhood association and gave it to the city to build it for us, and then 30 people showed up at a city meeting and said we don't want it anymore, and basically threw away a whole bunch of neighborhood money for a mini roundabout, and we ended up with only one. I'm just saying, like, trying to put that on the street unless everyone on the street and everyone in the block agrees, just from my experience, and that Pennsylvania and Fordham is nothing compared to K and 3rd as far as like visibility of traffic.
Let me just say this: that I'm going to go take pictures of that. It's just one in Pennsylvania and what?
It is literally Pennsylvania and Fordham. It is frequently missing the tree because people run it over.
Okay, so in other words, there's a U.S. DOT and Florida DOT. Excuse me. There's a U.S. DOT and Florida DOT approved mini roundabouts. That does not like meet that standard.
Look,
so
I understand what you're saying, and I'm an engineer. I love to tell you about the standards, and if it meets such standards, then we're okay. I'm just telling you what happened to a neighborhood association of well-meaning people in the city of Lake Worth when they tried to put 2 of those in. It was a nightmare. It really was.
The practicality with the refuse vehicles we have, utility vehicles, we destroy those.
The curbs.
Yeah, that's what you're saying. You don't understand. It's like basically the mini. They're also called runnable roundabouts. No, the official. The official standard is like different than what you're talking about.
I think there's one of those in Flamingo Park, and it's a mess because people just drive over.
I actually have a similar experience.
It's the width of the right of way. We don't have 50-foot or bigger right of way.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get off track, but I will say that those things are flashpoints of disagreement, and our intention is not to start a fire of disagreement.
In design standards, you'll find that you need more than 40 feet for the mini roundabouts, the mountable ones, whatever. We only have 40 feet of right of way. They don't fit.
We also wouldn't be able to get trees in them because of the whole fire department needing to mount them.
You can't,
but you can get trees in the bump outs that they're going to do at the intersection.
And I wasn't suggesting that not having the bump outs. You heard me.
Yeah, but you have to. I don't think we can do both. You're on the record. I don't think we could do both, and I personally would much prefer. I actually was quite relieved when you said that those pink things are bump outs at the intersections and the yellow things are speed humps. That's exactly, I think, what we want to see in our neighborhood and would like to have as the development pattern. My question about those is, at the pink places, are you going to be putting shade trees? Is that in the plan instead of palm trees?
Yeah, I'll discuss that. So right now, it's hardscape. Right now. We talked to the city. We're going to provide a list of trees that are options. Shade trees was... We had a voting mechanism at the last meeting, I think, of people of this session, and the people that voted, it was like 7-1 shade trees versus palm trees. Very much in favor of shade trees. So that message has been delivered. One of the concerns we do have, though, is the sight triangles, because where we're putting these bump outs is behind the crosswalk, but at the stop bar, and so that tree needs to have, if it's going to have a canopy, it needs to come in high enough that you can see below. So that's something we have to take in consideration. We're blessed. We have an arborist that works in our office, and so we've been running some ideas by her, and we're going to kind of play with it. Right now, what's shown in the plan is just a stamped concrete landscape.
That is going to be changed. Shade trees. It's definitely just from hardscape in those bump out areas.
Is that a leading question?
It's not going to be changed. No. So for right now, it's these bump outs that are stamped concrete. Budgetary.
Stamped concrete. We want shade trees.
Shade trees.
We
walk around in our neighborhood.
Let me finish speaking. So the budget is very tight, obviously, on this entire project.
How much
so
do they cost?
we're looking from what?
It depends on the type of tree.
With a clear trunk and all, it's probably be $1,500 per tree. Talking 4 per intersection.
Well, Fluffing is not going to pay for that.
So so what I'm trying to get at is we look at this as a phase. Let me finish. We look at this as a phased approach where we do the hardscape first. You can always saw cut in a 4x4 square out of this bump out and then install a tree at a later date. So we're looking at those ideas. They're giving us a list of trees that we can do, and we want to kind of get through the program, see where we are budgetarily, to make sure this $40 million gets everything that we've committed to done on the list, and all 36 miles in the city. Because obviously, K Street's not the only project in the whole city we have to do. So we have to keep dollars, and like we all do in our personal lives, in check before we start spending on gold-plated, faucets and stuff. So that's kind of the options are open.
Yep. That's not really a gold-plated faucet, though, in terms of like the benefits.
Look at the maintenance cost of it, though. We have maintenance costs, we have watering costs.
Look at the property value.
Yeah, you got property value increase. You have like ecosystem benefits.
We're covering the meat and potatoes with the bond program. Trying to get public safety, ADA upgrades, the roadways, get us back where we should be, and then we can start looking at the upgrades.
Or come to us with a budget that maybe the neighborhood associations can start thinking about if it's not in there. Hopefully the city figures out how to
I'm not saying it's out of the question. It's just right now we're at the point where we're maxed out on this budget for these roads, and those sort of features are what are expensive, and then ongoing maintenance afterwards.
Are we getting shade trees on 2nd Avenue South though, with the CDBG? I thought we were.
No, but we have the room for them, so we're not putting shade trees on there as of right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just some shade
Just as a suggestion, there's a LEAP grant that the neighborhoods all become involved in. So why don't you get the projects going? They're going to do the hardscapes, and then in the future you go through the LEAP grant to add your trees in your neighborhood. Yeah, that's what we've done in ours to enhance our green space.
If you want to spend like 4 weeks,
we all do it when we're
that's okay. Yeah,
I'm just saying. It's complex, like the.
We need someone to write this so that the rest of the
neighborhood.
They teach you how to write the grant, so you're okay.
Just as a clarification, I'd like to say that while the studies may show a few amount of cars going down K Street, it's got to be the #1 alternative route to downtown, because there are more cars going by my house and you can shake the stick at and they go. And while your studies may indicate that only a few cars speed, when they do speed, they're going 70 miles an hour, because Beth and my children, my pets were almost killed in an accident. We were pedestrians at like 2nd K, and one of the cars, it was such a hard impact, it went through the house.
Standing right in front of the house, and we luckily got out of the way, but it
split my family in half. And half my family went this way, half, and the car went between my family and into the house, all because of the visibility triangle being blocked. Because it was assumed that she had run a stop sign, but she actually stopped.
She was stopped.
And then went through, couldn't see the car coming, and then went right into the car. Great distance. So the amount of cars on K Street is voluminous, and the speed at which they travel is huge, and at the intersections they can't see. And what I got from this is that you guys seem like you're determined to address those issues.
So we are
and I'm greatly appreciative.
We're putting bump outs at every intersection, and we're putting speed humps, and because everyone agrees, and we know just from walking down the street multiple times trying to make sure we know what's wrong with the sidewalk and the curb, how crazy that street can be at all times of day. So I definitely agree, and I'm writing down for us to go back to our office and check not only that we have the site triangle worked out, but that we have a little bit of buffer room there if we need to add some chevrons or striping to give ourselves some room, because it's clearly
Did you by any chance notice 75 feet of absolutely perfect sidewalk and gutter on K Street that the city made me put in, despite there being sidewalk in there? I just want you to know I did that. And my apron is ADA compliant.
I actually think I might know.
You had to say, oh my God, what happened? Right.
Yeah. Something that traffic engineers and public works and everything needs to remember is, unlike cities that I've lived in before, we don't have traffic enforcement handing out tickets for cars parked. I'm going to say this is where what happened. This is about the distance where I used to live. 15 feet from a crosswalk is over $100 ticket, and up to the traffic enforcement if they wanted to tow your vehicle away immediately. We don't have enforcement like that in this city, so people are parking in front of fire hydrants, traffic triangles.
And Darren, I'm glad you brought that up, because we're actually working with the city manager and the parking division to enlarge the area to which the traffic, the parking people go to. So it's not just downtown or the beach, whatever. We want to go, 10 blocks north and south and start hitting people who are in these site triangles, because it is an issue.
And I know the city's getting better on traffic enforcement.
But for being parked on sidewalks. I got a ticket in Fort Lauderdale when I lived there for parking, over the sidewalk. Ticket people for it.
Yeah. They'll stop.
They'll stop, exactly.
Your family to come move to Lake Worth? which I do a lot of, I have a great deal of family that I've moved here, and one of the first things that'll happen is their auto premiums will go up.
Doubled.
When you move to this city, because of the rate of accidents, one of the costs beyond electric and all the property taxes will be your auto premiums.
And the uninsured motorists, yeah.
Because there's too many accidents.
So, following up on Ed's comment, like if I'm just still a little bit disturbed by this, what I see in front of me. Was there discussion about, like, if you're interested in, like, having slower traffic, about, like, converting this K Street from one-way to two-way? That's something that took place.
I didn't want to get the shit beat out of me, so I didn't say anything.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of parking too on K Street, so a lot of the residents expressed concern about not losing that parking.
No, you wouldn't lose the parking.
No.
If it was two ways.
No.
But you're saying no bike lane, two-way street.
Correct.
Right.
And that's actually the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council.
No.
Like, did a study of that, like, before I arrived in Lake Worth.
Of where?
Of converting one-way streets to two-way.
And what was the finding?
They were strongly, and in fact, I just spoke with the director last night.
I know, that's right.
Michael Busha.
What?
Michael Busha from Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council.
I know Michael.
It's funny. I actually don't. He might not be the actual director.
I didn't mean to, like, whatever. Go ahead, continue.
No, you kind of embarrassed me here. So I'm sorry.
I just knowing.
We don't know a lot of people.
Let's see if I have his card here. Give me a second.
Oh, that's
Robert.
consulting. That's not.
No, I don't have his name right here. But anyway, he was just saying that was,
one way to two.
So he was really disappointed with the city's response at the time. And I'm just saying,
when would that have been? I can't. What era? What time would that have been?
I lived here in 2012, so before I lived here.
Yeah, I can't remember when that. Because I lived here for 13 years.
When there was a discussion about a two-way street?
Yeah,
but it was part of the CRA sponsored a 2-week Treasure Coast planning. It's on print, online. And one of the recommendations, and they brought a traffic guy from Orlando down, a traffic engineer from Orlando, and one of the recommendations he made was that we consider going to two-way streets as a way of slowing and calming traffic, which was followed by uproar by, as you described earlier, the kind of thing that can happen, and it went nowhere. But it was an Orlando traffic engineer invited by the CRA as part of and it's the results. I can't imagine how many times I've referred people to that document because it's the one that recommended a grocery store be put down here in the middle of town, and it made all kinds of business recommendations, traffic recommendations, very comprehensive.
Was it at the Lake Worth High School? They did like charrettes?
No, they did it right over here at the shuffleboard course. It was like 2 weeks long. People could come and go. They came out into the communities, visited houses, and it was a whole team of folks from there. And then they it was very, very, very interesting and real valuable document.
Yeah. I mean, our intention was really to take the bond money that the city voters had approved and start replacing streets that were in disrepair.
Right.
And while we did it, made sure that we improved sidewalk connectivity and condition.
Right.
Make sure that we brought everything up to ADA standards, and really did it as soon as we could, because people finally said, let's do this, and we wanted to show people that we could do it and get it boots on the ground as soon as we could.
So is there resiliency studies on this work?
Resiliency studies? I don't know if you could say that with respect to the paving thing that we're doing now. There is a stormwater component of a later piece which is 15th Avenue South. There's some drainage concerns that we'll be dealing with, and at that point, we do have a model that was prepared by a prior consultant that does have a sea level rise simulation in it, and we'll be looking at that stuff for sure.
When you guys do that, I know that apartment complex just southeast of 15th Avenue South is currently draining directly into the Intracoastal. I don't know if there's any way that you can incorporate, taking on some of the private properties, stormwater drainage, so that it could be rerouted, so that we don't have.
You're kidding.
No, that it was built way back in the day before there was any requirement.
There's a lot of that going on.
Yeah.
We'll look at that.
A lot of that stormwater drainage. Yeah.
So look at that treatment stuff like that.
So you're saying apartment complex south of 15th Avenue South?
That big one.
That big one that just to the southeast, like the southeast corner. Yeah, it's on Lakeside. I think 15, 16. I reviewed a fence permit for it when I worked for the city. I just remember them wanting to do more and not being able to because they couldn't afford to update their drainage, and they're draining into the Intracoastal.
And this is the main focus of the 15th is in terrible condition in a lot of segments, but the reason we aren't addressing it yet is because we want to pull that whole thing apart from a drainage perspective, make sure we get it right. We're probably going to be ripping down 8 or 10 feet down and replacing things. So,
yes, you're also going to do the other sections that have drainage problems in South Palm. Well, no, you've got 10th and 11th. Just in the massive rains we had 3 weeks ago, where we had manhole covers flying off because of the drainage. There is no drainage. We have homes that get filled with water and sewage because of the drainage system that they put in years ago for the high-speed drains.
South Palmway.
South Palmway, and the homes are also on Lakeside.
So this is South Palmway and Lakeside. What blocks are on?
10 and 11.
10 and 11.
I got photographs of the
And
water
12.
coming out of the sewers.
Yeah.
Okay.
And 12.
Take a look at that.
Yeah, I know at the previous meeting there was actually a large group of people from that area that just come and they talked about the problems that were in the area.
Yeah. Part of the issues like DOT.
You only have a view place.
Outfall into our system.
One of the guys told us when they redid Federal Highway, they connected
It's a long story now.
directly across.
Yeah.
If you
Do
stand
a list,
in
of like areas that used to be problem areas that have drainage, and when we get to those areas, we're still going to have these public meetings, so you can bring them and hand us over a list or something. It'd be great.
Just stand there. You're the motorcycle engine on Federal Highway coming up.
I know how to get a hold of Chen more, but
That's what I need to make sure of, so I can tell my
Peter.
Yes, we were doing that.
Thank you again. Very much.
Thank you.
I was a homeowner's president.
I have to go back.
I want to follow up.
I was on the NAPC.
So you guys have done a really great job. The only thing I think that we're missing is the shade trees. But apparently aren't in the budget. But
Well, the idea is to kind of use the money efficiently to give a really good base, and then like in the future we'll go in and do like the beautification. But we want to spend the list wisely to go in and really give you guys good roads, good things, slow the traffic down hopefully, and then saw setting in an open space or something like that. Yes, it is going to cost something, but it's not going to be too much where we need to do it ahead of time.
well, and the Reef Branch idea that she had is a great idea.
Yeah, there are a lot of programs like that. Bond programs and things that you can apply for to kind of
So, are there other questions?
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. We got.
First of all, I've worked in city or done a lot of stuff with planning. This plan, the fact that it's been pulled together with the city, and everybody's in agreement, and we're seeing colored stripes of things. Just the layers that you guys have created with the city.
Thank you. And one of the things that I didn't really get into, but the reason there's different colored stripes is when we cut cores in the pavement, we found some places where the pavement was really thin, but there was a lot of rock, or there was a thick section of pavement, but not much rock, and various things. And so each segment we looked at what's the pavement core look like, and what kind of repair do we need to make to get it to the city standard. So although
What is the city standard?
So the city standard is 1.5 inches of asphalt on 8 inches of lime rock. And so what we do is maybe it doesn't make sense to do the same 1.5 on 8 because we don't want to dig down 9.5 inches. So we might do 2.5 inches of asphalt on 6 inches of rock. But there's a way to calculate to make sure that you get the same strength at the end of the day. What's there now might be 2 inches of asphalt and 3 inches of rock. And so that's just a mess. We got to replace that. Or we can find a way. There's a thing we're going to do here called cold in place recycling, where the machine will actually chew up the rock and the asphalt, and then so it chews it up, puts it into a paving machine, lays it back down, so in like a train, and what you get is like a base that's not just rock, it's more like an asphalt base, and it's stronger than the rock would have been. So at the end, instead of needing 8 inches of rock, you can do it in 5 inches of this base, and then put that finished course of the DOT certified super paved 9.5 asphalt that is going to be spec'd for all this repair. So the reason the colors are different is because each street we would find a different problem from a paving perspective and then solve it with a different approach, which is pretty much not something anybody's going to care about, but I just thought I'd tell you, because the thing you want to know is when I'm driving down the street, what am I going to see? What's my traffic environment going to be like? How's it going to be for pedestrians and bikers? Those are the questions that we're here to answer, but just to give you an idea of what's going to happen.
I remember the day that they went down First Avenue and I saw them drill this hole.
Yes.
Yep. And I thought, what are they doing? Yep. And lo and behold, every one of those drill spots ended up being a huge pothole. That's when all the potholes are down the middle of the second entrance.
So the good news is all the places that we drilled these things are getting replaced. So I'm not sure about those cores and that situation. On First, we're not doing anything on First in this cycle, but all the ones I punched, I had a guy punch a hole in the ground, that's going to be completely replaced.
I think we have C71.
So everything that's got a color tape is the first half of our year 1.
The first half of year.
So it's in color tape, and then red is the second half of year 1. Yes. So we started the stuff in color tape, I want to say in March.
What is color tape?
So this is just this color tape here. These are just streets.
Are you guys
highlighted?
Oh, with the red line.
These red lines.
Second half.
Yeah.
These red lines. We'll start the design on these in July. Like mid-July. I think there's probably one of these meetings to talk about these streets in August, and then another one in September. And then we'll be done with those design plans at the end of September to start building in October. So these will be under construction starting in July, and how the contractor moves through that, we're figuring 180 days. Hopefully they can do it faster.
So the pink and the yellow are the bump outs and the speed humps, and the orange is a repaving, and the green and the blue.
So these are different kinds of repaving.
Different types of
So this is the cold in place. So everything that's along the street is a different type. Is a type of paving.
Okay.
So this is a mill and overlay where
you have to go through all that again.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure I have them.
Like one of the examples to point out, blue, 11th Avenue South. We did that core and we found 2 inches of asphalt and then sand, and then some rock, and then sand again, and it was like, whoa, this is a disaster. So this is getting dug up and replaced. For instance, that's why it's the only blue one.
Yes.
That's the only street that we really couldn't do anything with.
Yeah.
So what's the orange then? What is that?
So the orange is this cold in place recycling I was talking about, where you chew up the rock and the asphalt,
five
put it back, right, and then come back with the asphalt. The green is, so like 4th Avenue South, we're going to just go through and mill, I think, the top 2 inches off and put back 2 inches of asphalt, because we found that underneath that asphalt, the rock meets the standard that the city has. Everything's fine. It's just that the asphalt itself is aged and starting to crack and starting to warp and show. There are places on every street where the pavement section looks good, but you got a pothole over here that maybe is because it's next to a manhole that wasn't properly fixed, or somebody came and did a repair and didn't compact it, whatever. You get a pothole in a street that really everything else would tell you shouldn't be there. So in those cases, in our plans, we call for selective base reworking. So they'll open up that section, put some new rock in, compact it, make sure that's in good condition before they come through and pave. So that's kind of how we're working through it.
So the last question I have is really for Herman and Philippe, and it's about the roads that aren't on the...
Herman, feel free to come join me.
Thank you for asking.
I believe I will start
because we are going to get a penny sales tax, and we are going to get a portion of that, probably $2 million a year. We're going to have discussions of how we're going to spend it, and there's interest in roads, and if the community shows its interest in roads versus casino property, pool, versus anything else that might come up.
Yeah, all discussion.
My vote is for a couple $100 grand to fix the pool however you need to fix it, and maybe move the locker room but no water park, and then secondarily do the rest of the roads.
A second.
So
there's a consensus in the room. Right?
As demonstrated tonight, there are differences of opinion, and there are other people that feel that roads are more important. So I'm asking you to be conscious of the budget meetings, and if there is interest in, because there was concern for notification, having another get-together that the neighborhoods can put out better information to get together in, say, Bryant Park.
One of the questions on your survey is about, it says, what do you think about having a coffee talk or something, another way of getting together? And we were talking with Herman about possibly meeting in the park one Saturday morning and have Brent and Herman and whoever else from the city it can be there, so that in a very relaxed atmosphere you can come and just chat.